I will say this. Church attendance isn't necessarily indicative of faith in the United States, but it is a good metric, and unfortunately they do sort of mirror each other, just to different degrees. In other words, people who attend church are still invariably going to be lower than people who identify as believing in God, or maybe do church from home, maybe do a Bible study. But I do think a church is important because of, like Dave was saying, that community. A lot of people now don't have that third place, and then unfortunately that void gets filled by CrossFit. So church is important. As far as why it's gone down, well, look, I will say this. I think that churches have done a really bad job of serving their congregations and their neighborhoods. I can't tell you how pissed off I was going into elections. I can't tell you how pissed off I was going into pandemics where they would play ball and not even address it. Not even address the fact that we were looking at, for example, let's say today, I bet you can go to most churches across this country, and outside of black churches, where we just showed you, there ain't nothing but two genders. And I remember they had people there campaigning, senators and congressmen and congresswomen. They were unashamed because they're not going to lose their 501c3 status. But then you have these other churches that are so afraid of speaking out on issues. And I don't just mean politically. I'm not talking about endorsing a candidate. I'm talking about issues that affect everybody. Because I would sit in the church, and I will tell you this, I often felt like it's a waste of time until you get to the right church. When I moved to a new city after I'd gotten married, I had gone through a few churches where there were issues of the day going on. I'll just use today as an example because I don't remember what was going on, let's say, in 2012 exactly. But if today this is happening in Florida, and I go into a church and it's not even addressed, or even worse, a pastor is asked about it and, well, I don't want to wade into that. Our job is to love everybody. That's not your only job. It's not your only job. And so I think it's a combination of sort of like with Mitt Romney, where I don't know who he's trying to appease.
Yeah.
If you have a group of people who are going to hate you anyway, regardless of whether you say you're personally pro-life, but you think it's a woman's choice, regardless of whether you say you believe that, but I don't want to push my beliefs on somebody else, regardless of how milquetoast you are, these certain people are going to hate you anyway. And then you have a congregation of Christians who are looking for a shepherd for their flock. I cannot stress to you the importance of this, is you are a shepherd. You may be a pastor of a church, of a poor, small church, and you may have billionaire CEOs in your church, and guess what they're doing? They're submitting to your authority. They are saying, I am your sheep, be my shepherd today. And if you're not, because you're well, you should expect your church to shrink. And I just don't think that neutrality is an option in today's world. And I would sit in a church and they would say, and look, maybe we're going through some dark times, but the Lord will pull us all through. And I go, what are the dark times? When the Bible describes dark times, it describes the dark times. You can read about Job in depth, almost torturous. It's like Mr. Bill with a guy. When churches go up and the pastor says, we're really doing this, but the Lord will, no, don't give me platitudes. What do you mean by dark times? What do you mean by this world needs Jesus more than ever? What do you mean by that? If it needs Jesus more than ever, why? That means that it needs Jesus more than before. And unfortunately, you have a lot of pastors who aren't willing to finish that train of thought. And I will say this, if that's the kind of church that you are, it's of no value to me. So I'm hoping it's reflective of that. I don't think it necessarily is, but I can tell you that that's a big reason that I've stopped attending churches and gone to other churches. I think, Gerald, you've had similar experiences where you just have to have some, I'm not saying you have to go up and endorse Donald Trump or Dickers, but you have to have some balls.
It's 100% true. And right now it's performative preaching. It's preaching to get an audience. And let me just tell you, if you're in a church right now, if you're a pastor, I hope every pastor hears this. Your job is not to grow your church. Your job is to preach the truth. Period.
Which should grow your church.
Exactly. But that is just that one thing, healthy things grow. You and I went to a church where it's healthy things always, weeds grow too.
Yep.
Right? Things that you don't
They
want
almost
to
grow like weeds.
We need truth more than ever. We don't need you to go up and tell us a really flowery story and how you kind of weave it into the message for 15 minutes. What we need is 45 minutes of solid biblical teaching. Please just give us the truth. That's what we're craving. We're not finding it anywhere. Or if we're finding it, it's in very few places.
Yeah.
So don't go on to, and I'm not going to pick on him too much, but don't go on and look at Joel Osteen and be like, that's my guy. That's not your guy. I'm not saying that Joel Osteen is a charlatan. I'm saying that Joel Osteen doesn't preach just the truth. It is the flowery, everything's going to be okay, and God wants you to have that parking space, and God wants you to have
talking
that
about
car.
not giving back.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's what they see, and they're like,
God told me
"Well,
to
there's no
lie
value
about
there."
being an expectant mother.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's what they see, and they're like, there's no value there. They're no different than the world. Of course people aren't going to come. Why would they?